about Super Chump. Super Chump is really weird because it does a lot of things, and it's difficult to, like, parse out which of the things it does are actually useful and which ones are just, like, a useless way to think about the special. So, like, I came into this thinking, okay, how does this compare to missiles? Because the NZAP 89 was a weapon in Splatoon 2 that got autobomb and missiles. It was pretty much the same thing as this, except missiles instead. So I'm looking at it like, okay, well, let's compare the two and see how they feel. And using it, I was like, man, I'm getting a lot of this special, and I don't feel like it's doing anything. That's because I was trying to play it like I was trying to play missiles, and you can't do that. They don't do the same thing. If you launch missiles at this player right here, they have to move or they're going to die. If I launch super chumps at them, even if they don't destroy any of them, yeah, 85. It's not even going to die from that. And that was just, like, aimed pretty much directly at it. So you're not going to get any kills with this thing. Like, really any. That's... The special itself is almost never going to do any significant amount of damage to someone, because they have so long to respond to it, and the chumps only have, I think, 60 damage each. Sorry, 60 HP each. They'll do 60 damage on a direct, but if you're getting directed by this thing, that means you've been, like, standing on it for, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds or something, some ridiculously long amount of time. If this was a sub-weapon, it would be one of the worst sub-weapons in the game, because it has just too long of a fuse time. It's too easy to react to. And it's not controlling that much space, it's not doing that much damage. So, if you're not using them for the damage, what are you using them for? It's definitely not for the super jump, you know, trick, because, okay, maybe, you know, one of them goes up on a ledge and you don't realize, oh, wait, this is actually just a super jump spot. Well, it's not like being here gets you splatted or anything for that. It's just, oh, there's a chump there now. I'm just going to shoot it 3 shots and it's down with just about any weapon. So it's not for tricking them with the jumps. That's a meaningless part of the special, basically. It's not for doing damage. But one thing that it can do is it can be used for cover. I'm going to fire it here. Actually, I'm going to fire it over at one of these dummies here. And we're going to try and pick one that lines up well. Okay, here we go. Look at this. I can hit this player directly through the chump. They can't hit me directly through the chump. They have to shoot the chump first. So, what's happening is, it's basically like a discount splash wall. It's going to take far, far fewer shots before it breaks. It's not even as much HP as a sprinkler has. A sprinkler is honestly probably more likely to do damage to them than the chump is. But it's a forest of them, and you can kind of, like, sneak around and get around in them. And even if they're starting to try and paint the area or something, a couple of shots are going to get blocked, and a couple of shots being blocked does make a difference in a firefight. You know, if you've got your aim on, they've got their aim on, that's a really big difference. So, what you want to do with this thing is actually kind of similar to how you'd run missiles, where what you're going to do is you're going to launch it, and you're going to want your teammates to be there already, pushing in with this, and, like, taking fights using the chumps as your little bodyguards out here, as your little meat shields. You're going to be putting them out in front of you while you try to fight people. It's also going to be kind of useful for maybe, like, disguising weapons that want to go in stealthed. I've heard tales of rollers being able to use these really well, because it hides even, like, their ninja squid ripples, so that they're able to get up close to people and they're not realizing it because there's a chump in the way visually blocking it. And maybe that's enough. Maybe being able to use it as just basically deployable cover over a certain area, you know, the place where you want to take the fight. Maybe that's enough to make an enemy team back up. Maybe that's enough to be worth, you know, respecting and to get them pushed out of an area, if your team is coordinated and is able to follow up with that. In solo queue, once people start realizing that they can just shoot these things and they do absolutely nothing, they do 0 damage, they do not paint the map, like, it's very counterplayable up until the point that someone's actually sharking in there already, waiting for you to be shooting the chumps. So, I think the idea here is you launch them in a place, maybe, you know, if it's solo queue, where there's a fight already going on, or a place where the opponents maybe can't back away, because just firing them out randomly to try and displace the enemy team, but if your teammates are trying to follow up on that reactively, half the chumps are already going to be shredded by the time they get there, and all of the important ones are going to be gone already. But if you're on a coordinated team and you can get that launched and they're landing while your teammates are getting on top of them, that's where I could see this getting some results. And we do have some results from a Japanese zones tournament, where a double NZAP 89 team was able to win. So that speaks a lot to its potential. Now, it might also speak to the opponents not knowing counterplay, and maybe this isn't as strong as of an option as that would have you believe. But I think it's definitely worth looking into as a special to set up a team fight, because this weapon is fairly strong. It's a fast-moving, you know, short-range shooter with a lethal bomb, albeit an auto bomb, that can get this special quite a few times, and so it might be a valuable support option. It's a good painter, it's got better range than something like a junior. It's still, you know, competing with the splash, and I'm not sure, you know, that passing up on a crab tank is worth it, even now that there are all these, you know, specials that can potentially threaten the crab tank. We're still seeing, you know, triple splash machine style comps at top level, but this might still be viable. You know, this might still be a possible competitor with the T-Tech or the, you know, the Neo Splash. It's something to try. It's something to think about. And, you know, on other weapons, as soon as they come out, it's definitely not a special that's going to hold them back entirely by itself. I think that there's definitely some more that we can learn about how to use this thing, and it has potential, and it's not totally invalid as a top-level option. So try it out if you've been interested in looking at this thing, because I think there might be something to it. Try it out on the NZAP, though. The Clash Blaster is, in my opinion, the single weakest main weapon in the entire game. It needs something that it can poke with, and a curling bomb is not that. It doesn't paint very much, so it's not going to be getting much of this special anyway. But I would definitely say that the NZAP 89, worth potentially considering as a support option, especially if maybe you've got like a roller player you're trying to sneak in there, if you've got some really aggressive frontline weapons that are going to be able to move up and push with the NZAP. Could be, you know, sort of similar to how the NZAP 85 is played, where if you're running the tactical, you're running it with an aggressive frontline comp that wants the tactical to be able to run in and feed. Here, rather than running in and feeding, you're running in and trying to get an advantageous fight using the chumps as cover when you're trying to take a specific area where you know the enemy is going to try and make a stand. So, those are my thoughts on it for the time being. We'll see, you know, what other results people are able to get with it. I definitely wouldn't say it's a top-tier special. I'd probably put it around the same area as maybe like an Inkstorm right now. But there's definitely some stuff that you can do with it, and I think that's worth exploring at least for a short amount of time to see if you can make it work for you and your team.